Greetings, my name's JB.
And I'm Jordan.
And this is Toolin' Around.
You know what we need to do?
What?
We need to do some show and tell. We need to show the audience our beautiful TYA set and tell them how it came to be.
We're going to show you someone who's going to tell you all about it. And we're not going to blank on her name.
Cindi
Blank
Taylor, come on out!
Well, welcome here to Tooling Around, where we have our very own Cindi Blank Taylor to talk a little bit about painting. And really, when it comes to painting, I have found that there are a lot of nuances that I wasn't aware of before this point. And when I say before this point, I mean when you actually started to show your proclivity and your talent for making some really incredible pieces of art in stage. So walk us through a little bit when it comes to scenic painting and also scenic design. A little bit about your background.
Okay.
Where did you come from? How did you get here? You know, that whole thing.
Okay, well, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, so that's where I'm from. So if you hear the accent a little bit, I apologize.
It's good, you're in the sixth
No.
row.
Talk more with your hands.
Okay, so I went to undergraduate at Florida Atlantic University. where
Go
I-
Owls.
Who?
I did get 2 BFAs, one in technical production, one in studio art. I went to University of Michigan where I got an MFA in set design and I would say a minor in scenic artistry. I studied briefly at Cobalt Studios, which is in upstate New York. And when I finished grad school, I moved here with my then boyfriend, now husband of 20 years. And I looked up, this is how old I am. I looked up in the yellow pages what theaters are in the area, because
Wait, for those who might be beyond the millennial
Yes.
era and going into Gen Z,
Yeah.
let's walk through what is Yellow Pages.
Yellow Pages.
Yellow Pages used to be a very thick book.
Look at this thing
That-
now. It's crazy.
Because nobody advertises in it.
Take your fingers through the walking, through the yellow pages, ring round, take a look. Let your fingers do the walking, yellow pages.
So it used to be this thick a book that you would literally go alphabetically looking for businesses to see who was around. So I opened to theater and I'm like, no, I don't need movie theater, I want live theater. And I went around calling them all, I went door to door with my portfolio. And
You know-
I said, here I am, give me a chance.
You know, I was just thinking about it. Much like John Goodman, the Yellow Pages used to be a lot thicker.
Sure, he has lost a lot of weight.
He has. Good for him, I
Yes.
say. Good for him. I am working on that. So when it comes to scenic design, but specifically when it comes to paint,
Yes.
a lot of people underestimate that. Walk us through what differentiates a scenic artist from a scenic painter and why it might be more appropriate in most theatrical events and settings to utilize a scenic artist as opposed to a scenic painter.
One, I can say there's a difference between a scene painter and a scenic artist. Now, you can, like, some people be like, well, what's the difference? It's like, you can say someone coming and paint a scene painter and going, I want this wall painted blue, I want this painted that, and it's flat tones. When you get into a scenic artist, they can actually do drops. Because there's a lot that may study scene painting but never know how to do a drop, how to come up with like cartooning it or doing the full wood grain. So as a scenic artist, you learn how to carve You learn, you know, with the sculpting that you can make, or props to also cross over, and there's other materials you use. So it's all about the level of what you want. So even when I went to somebody, they go, okay, I want a stone wall. I'm like, well, and I go, it's like, okay, you could do a gray wall and do black lines. I think I even have pictures on my phone that I'll show somebody. And I'll be like, okay, and then you can take the next step and maybe model it a little bit. Like somebody may put a little grays, a little, like, you know, a little bit of highlight, but not get it. But then you'll have a scenic artist that knows where to put the highlights, where to put the low lights, where to put the cast shadow, that all of a sudden it becomes trompe-l'oeil, which means to fool the eye. You could be handed the same paint elevation to 10 different scenic artists, and they can all look, when they're done, 10 different ways, because you also kind of have your own little handwriting in it, but they can also still all look like the paint elevation. So, I mean, there are times that I've also worked on, let's say, like a big drop, and they used to have a timer set up. So when we had 3 or 4 of us working on a huge drop, the timer would go off for like every half an hour, so we could rotate, so that way you couldn't tell, I painted this one little section, that painted, so that way it would all flow together.
It all blends and all the different
As
little
much
nuances in the
as much
technique.
as we go about the technique and we learn about when you're painting that you start with the base coat, you put the highlights, the cast shadows. I mean, when you go to school today, I was very fortunate that back in the day I studied under Susan Crabtree because she was writing her book on scene painting at the time. So we were her guinea pigs on how to even approach the book, because we would have the rough drafts and she'd go through it.
And what's the title of her book, just in case people are interested?
Scenic Art for Theater.
Okay.
So
Keep it simple.
Hey guys, just keep at the technique, keep at the strokes.
What? Wait, guys, you're supposed to have paint on your brushes. What's wrong with you?
Show and tell. Please take a look at what it actually is all finished. Here's the cart.
My God, I love this art.
You know, wow, this look at the forest I'm gonna hide in.
Well, we're not looking at the forest for the trees. We're also looking at a lair.
Where'd you go? Are you hiding there? It's a wall! Oh, I need a drink. Where's bartender? Ooh, that's it. Ah! Worst library ever! Rude! You know what? This is tiring. I give up. I need a nap.
So now let's talk about our most recent endeavor together, because you work with several theater companies in the area.
Yes.
But you helped us with a concept for a TYA set that's going to be used in 4 different productions that our very esteemed in-house designer put together. And you came up with the concept for.
Well, I would say that actually it was still Jordan's concept. I just brought it out of his brain to visually show what it was, because that one I'm trying to give credit where credit is due, because Jordan was going, okay, I have these pictures of trees, and I really like Arthur Rackham, which I really like Arthur Rackham too, which is an illustrative artist. And so
Illustrative artist of what genre of illustration?
I would say Victorian pre-Raphaelite era.
The golden age of British illustration.
So was it like the 1800s? I'm trying to remember to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, Victorian.
Yeah. So yeah, Victorian era, or also known as pre-Raphaelite time. So the whole thing was, he was saying, okay, so you see this digital picture I have of these trees. I want you to redo the whole set, but in Arthur Rackham storybook style. But I can't really draw that, Cindi. I'm not exactly sure, so just pull it out of my brain and put it up.
I think that goes back to the emphasis on artists and scenic artists as opposed to just a painter. Because a painter, anyone can paint. There's an actual painter, has a lot of technical skill and ability that they're utilizing that is far beyond the layman. One of the reasons I enjoyed working with you in the past and getting to work with you from a designer's perspective for the first time for this show, as opposed to someone who's putting it together and figuring out and assisting in whatever way I can as a lowly carpenter. It's having this idea in my head and being completely inarticulate about it and having no idea what the hell I was saying. It was like, help! I have this idea, it's really pretty, I make it work. It's far more involved and painstaking than anyone who comes to see a show would ever realize.
Well, part of the dilemma or problem we had on this show was you did have a vision, but I didn't have that scale paint elevation to go off of, because also depending on someone's vision is how you approach the project. So since this one we weren't quite as sure where we wanted to end up, it was an evolution. So I started with cartooning it out, which I did use a projector where I said I had these favorite trees of Rackham, so we put these kind of in there to get at least to see, is this the composition we were going for? So then after I cartoon it out, I then go back with a paintbrush and then start painting it in, and to see, and then we had it where it looked like Rackham. But then we discussed it wasn't that storybook feel of some of the other artists where they had a little bit more saturated color, where we kind of even brought up Winnie the Pooh, and of that watercolor wash to it. So a wash is a translucent glaze, in case someone goes, what do you mean wash? I'm not washing walls, I'm giving it a wash of color. And so we went through and then we're going, okay, we want a little bit more, and how we would want to tie it into all the other pieces. So since it had to work for 4 different productions, how does the story we're telling with it work for all the productions? So it's something that is specific but still universal, something that can easily translate to each story. So having to come up also with that to be being very simple but still having enough visual interest, and how, as we say, we don't want it to overtake the actors, we wanted to enhance the actors.
And just so everyone knows, the set that we're talking about is actually going to premiere at Pinecrest Gardens on November 5th at 7 o'clock. You can buy your tickets online, and you will be able to see the brilliant artwork of Cindi Blank Taylor and the design of Jordon Armstrong, who's also going to be Robin Hood.
Mazel tov.
We hope you enjoyed this little behind-the-scenes special tour tidbit.
It's going to be one of, we hope, many in terms of taking a look at the technicians, artists, and craftspeople that go into behind the scenes of a theatrical production.
The people that make the beautiful finished picture that an audience gets to see and never gets to see the people that are actually putting it together and bringing it to its final fruition.
In other words, we're going to be showing the identities and faces of the names that only really get recognition in the program. So with that, I'm JB.
And I'm Jordon.
And this is
Toolin' Around.
Exit. Stage right.
Pursued by bear!
Drone Edition.